What type of success have you had so far?
So,
Per school.
to measure the outcome per se of the program, the volunteers are placed with a group of 4 to 5 students, depending on how many students are in each class. At the end, the volunteers are given a piece of paper to take roll. This helps the school with attendance, but it's also a form that the individual, the volunteer can kind of grade. This student needs immediate attention. They may be struggling with something at home. This student is okay, but you should check up on them later. And then this student is fine. And then that information is passed on to the counselors, so they can kind of gauge from there who needs more assistance than that. So with that being said, we're working on a follow-up program as well, so we can be more proactive than reactive in the future with the students knowing where they would need help. So as far as measuring the success of the program, it's really, I mean, if you ask anyone that participated last year, it's a very moving program. It can be very emotional, but overall the students really, they take away a lot more than they would from just watching a video on bullying.
I've heard a lot of good things about the program, and I think that it's a very good program that's reached a lot of people, at least from what I've heard, everything that I've heard. So I'd recommend that we get Dr. Manchin, sit down and see if we can come up with some funding. Maybe
Can we get a copy
funding
of your
request.
501c3?
Now, we did this last year, didn't we? Yeah, that's what I thought.
But
Because Mark came in.
It's $4,095 per school.
Per school.
Yeah, we were pleased. I heard some good things about it last year, so.
And you're asking for that amount per school?
No, just at most $2,000 per school. We, like I said, with our 501c3 now being approved, we can reach out for other donations. So we just wanted to get some funding to start out, and that would go directly to the cost of the program.
Is the program a one-day event?
It is a one-day event, yes, and it's the whole day.
How, I'd like to know, how much is Bear Contracting donating to the cause?
Last year, we paid for the entirety of the program.
You never came to anybody else?
We did not, because our 501c3 was not approved yet, and we didn't want to reach out and burden anyone with
So,
not being able for it to be tax effective.
so they paid the $25,000 approximately.
We had some, our sister companies, one of our sister companies assisted with the cost of the food, and then we had a couple other companies in the oil and gas industry donate towards the cost of lunch.
Anybody have any further questions? No? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job.
All right, that brings us down to delegations. Are there any delegations?
I have not received them.
No delegations?
Oh, shit.
All right.
Let's this thing keep going off.
Superintendent's update. Dr. Manchin?
Mr. President, we have a couple of things. As it relates to the facilities, Jimmy has some updates on the CEFP and the status of the CEFP and where we are in that process. I do understand that we had a meeting last week. Is that correct?
Yes, Dr. Manchin. We had a meeting on Monday, August the 5th.
Right.
It was our fourth meeting that we've had with the CEFP. Of course, Tom, that was here as an architect for McKinley, came in and gave us an overview and summary of what has transpired so far. And then Mike Pickens, which used to be the State Transportation Facilities Director, came with them as he's been hired by McKinley to evaluate our educational facilities. So that's the next procedure, is they're going to begin the evaluation of all of our facilities on September the 3rd. And they wanted to see that there was occupants inside of the schools, so it was utilized, HVAC's running, you know, and everything's fully operational to evaluate the facility. So we have not scheduled a meeting. We're going to see how that goes as we're developing a schedule to go over the visit to the school. They said it may take up to a month to evaluate all of our schools.
And they'll check for everything, mold, anything that may be within schools,
Yes.
and all that'll be in the reports.
Yes,
Okay.
and we have, you know, as far as the CEFP, we want it to be as comprehensive and usable as possible. Everything from the roofs that need replaced in the next 10 years, as well as equipment, because you never know who's going to be here in 10 years. We may all be gone, but there's still going to be a need to identify the needs in the schools. As far as the update, I'll continue to update at our board retreat, and also an update on the facilities as far as the summer renovations, projects have been completed. We've had a very successful summer.
It has been.
Yeah, and I think I have some good news as far as that goes. We've been very active in making sure that our facilities have a deep cleaning. So, and we'll update you along with Joe Ammons will be here to help out with that.
Do we have any mold issues this year?
We better not.
We better not.
Jimmy Bender says
Yeah.
we better not.
No, everything has been good. Last year was a perfect storm. It was a perfect storm for, you know, the amount of humidity. We've targeted those areas. We've changed some things, and I think that the staff will be pleased. And we keep going back and looking at those areas that we're suspected at. And it's not perfect. I mean, you're never going to, our houses aren't perfect. But we have come a long way, and I think everybody will be pleased. So, and we've had some other outside evaluations done from the State Department in those areas at South Harrison Middle and at Liberty that we'll share with you at the board retreat that shows that there is no mold in those areas. So.
I only had a question that, you know, I don't know what the thing is. We have the summer work crews.
Yes.
And then they stopped on Monday, and why did we not work them the rest of the week? The rest of the full week?
How many days do we have built into the?
We have 5 PL days?
No.
What you're asking?
No.
No, contract.
For the summer crew,
45.
40 in the 45 or 44
It's not
days.
to exceed
We only have so many days,
Yeah, 44.
and I was going to ask.
Why can it not exceed?
Because that's how much we budget to pay.
So in
We
other
make
words,
it
if we
exceed
change the
them.
budget, we could have extended it like the other 4 days. I mean, there's that much more work maybe could have been done and finished up.
What's happened is, this year, you're looking at a long summer. Next year may not be like that. Last year, we couldn't even get all of our days in because it was a shortened summer. So this year, probably, we actually were able to get more work done. Now, there's always more work that they could have got
Right.
done.
I just think that, you know, it would have been.
Depending on the
beneficial.
calendar.
Yeah. Well, but
But-
if the calendar doesn't change next year, you know, I mean, it's always going to change maybe just a little bit, but hopefully we're going to keep this calendar in place,
Yes, sir.
you know, so that we don't
It's kind of nice
keep
that we
changing.
have some combo after the-
We'll take all the days that we can because, you know, with
Well, that's what I say.
24 facilities, you know, we have a lot of work to do.
We
Absolutely.
budgeted.
Well, and that's kind of a way to structure maintenance folks during the summer and get some stuff done that they may have to
But
take care of later.
But I tell you, it was a joint effort, and I think people will be pleased with the process.
Well, I mean,
Progress they made.
I mean, it was all over the county doing a lot of projects. I just thought, you know,
We only have
why
one
they would have
bad.
stopped on, yeah, I mean, Mrs. Hinkle's got to be able to loosen up the checkbook a few more days and all. You know. Four more days. Four.
I'll start with your pay.
Mine?
I'm kidding.
That's all
Can't
right.
get any looser.
That's all I had, Dr. Manchin, unless
Okay.
there's any questions.
There's no questions. I appreciate the job you're doing, Jimmy, with this CEFP. It's a major thing. Let me just make sure everybody understands that this year's project that we intend to submit to the School Building Authority is not part of the new CEFP. So if there's any questions out there, the project that we submit, this is still the 2010 CEFP. The new one will be to next year. So just so there's any confusion about that. Mrs. Stutler, as it relates to personnel, I know you have a couple of things, and I might preface some of these, one of the documents that you'll hand out. Oh, you already have it, right? It's already out there.
They have it in their folders.
Yeah, in their folders. And House Bill 206 did provide additional funding. I know Gary and I talked to that at length this spring. Before we did any other, we wanted to make sure, because I think the consensus of this board was it was very, very important to get social workers and counselors. And I'm pleased to say, because of the funding, that we will be able to do that. Dora, you want to tell the board what this document is that you've handed out?
Yeah, the proposal that you have is mainly just addressing the counselor issue, because I know that was a goal for Dr. Manchin and the board to get counselors in the schools. And what I've done is I've listed the elementary schools, what they currently have, and then what the new proposal would be. And if you look at the bottom, in the bold at the bottom, it's going to take 4 additional counseling positions to get a counselor in every elementary school. If an elementary school had 300 plus students, they can have a full-time counselor without, I mean, this will not even involve like transfers or things. We can move those counselors back to their home base and then add a new counselor in the school that they were sharing with. The 2 smallest elementary schools was Wilsonburg and Lost Creek. And I think it's important that a counselor be in the building every day and be there first thing when those kids come in the morning for the consistency. So our thoughts were, if you put a counselor at Lost Creek in the morning, they'll work there first thing in the morning. They're there every day. Then Nutter Fort Primary has a need because their population is large. And generally a counselor would go over and work a day there. We can have that counselor from Lost Creek go to Nutter Fort Primary in the afternoons to fill in there. But the counselor would start at Lost Creek, and if there was a child in crisis, they could possibly stay there because, you know, Nutter Fort would already have a counselor on staff. So every school's going to be covered all the time under this plan. Wilsonburg would be the same, and with Wilsonburg being in proximity to the Back to Basics program, they had requested counseling help there, and that's all part of that mental health what you guys have started program, and so that would add some counseling services at the Back to Basics for those elementary kids. They would start out at Wilsonburg, be there every morning at Wilsonburg, and then possibly help out at the Back to Basics program. So we've covered them all, and in our larger schools like Big Elm, Nutter Fort Primary, and the other largest school, oh, Johnson, all have over 600 kids. They would have a person and a half. So, and we can do that with 4 additional counseling positions.
So I think it's safe to say that we've pretty
That's a
well
good start.
addressed
Our
it.
problem is if we don't act on this, and I hire social workers in my profession, it's going to be harder to get them. If every county is going for, there's not an infinite number of licensed social workers out there and licensed counselors.
Well, we're moving.
Get them while you can.
Good job, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. President, that's all I have for superintendent's update.
I do want to add to the counselor. This has always been a huge thing of mine, as Donna knows, and I've talked to, you know, an advisor and a counselor, or someone that's just helping with paperwork, is what it amounts to. I've been extremely disappointed with our counseling, period, countywide. And you're asking for 4 new positions, which a few years ago we had a similar idea, and we'd have a counselor said they couldn't do their work because they were, doing transcripts, this and that, and doing phone calls. Well, the problem with that is we went to automatic transcripts. We gave them a half-day assistance, and they ended up just basically answering phones with the count. I mean, I'm just telling you, I have not, and we eliminated the position because of it. I want counselors. I mean, I want someone that's not in there to be a social networker or someone to help the teacher next door. I want somebody actively involved with the students that need counseling, not filling in forms and paperwork for another teacher or whatever. I have to know who's evaluating these counselors, because I don't want 4 new people to do nothing again. And I'm not saying that in a bad way to the very good counselors, but in general, we need some very, very specific direction for these people and to the people that work in the building, that they aren't there to talk to everybody, and you know what I mean? It is a professional job. And I just think it's something that we haven't been very specific on maybe, and we've looked for all these alternatives. So it's not really anybody's fault because maybe it's not described to them, but I just want to make sure that we are getting what we are wanting as a board, is what I'm saying. And that's a real counselor. Someone that is identifying and helping our students.
Well, we had that discussion, the House bill, I mean, it says that they will be working with students 80% of their time, so the counselor.
How are we
will have to
documenting
log
that?
in a counseling log that they do every month. And really at the elementary level, counselors were used, I think, differently than at the high level. We don't have the transcripts and the grades and all that. At the elementary level, they're intervening with children.
Right.
You know,
And I
it's
share
very
what you
different,
said.
and these
You're
will be
absolutely right.
elementary.
They have
Yeah.
to counsel, and boy,
Yeah.
just and we try to help them. And the board was very gracious, providing additional, and they don't have to do that. Doesn't take their expertise. And I'm talking at the secondary level.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying, but these are specific to only elementary.
That is
because we
correct.
don't have the clerical problem that we have there because they're working with kids.
And counselors, you know, are directed a lot by the administrators in the building, so.
And the
Well,
counselors
that's
come
what
in.
I
We'll
just
talk to
said.
them.
I think the administrators need to be told they aren't just an extra person, an extra hand around, you know, or someone. Because I'll tell you right now, I would go into, when my kids were in school, I'd go in and there's extra people. We're in the office answering telephones.
Oh, that's great.
And I know that to be a fact because I stood there. And I think the administrator, you are exactly right, is probably the key point in this, that they make it very clear that it is a professional position for the students and not to be handed out all over the school. And I, just like you, I would like to know how that's documented, and I think that it needs to be stressed to the administrators.
And it'd be reviewed, and you know, this is something that we've all felt strongly about, is that counseling, and I don't believe in, all the counselors come in. When do we have the counselors, Donna?
End of September, Dr. Manchin.
Did we not, when all the teachers are back, don't we get the counselors separately one day?
Oh, yeah, they have their professional development training, yes, yeah, they do.
Because over the years, I've had the opportunity to talk with them and continue to emphasize that to the principals, the administrators in the building, is that don't sit there and wait for a kid to come walking into you. Walk through the school, interact with kids, and you'll be able to see that they've got issues. So your point's well taken, Kristen. That is something that's very critical, and I hope that based on this discussion, we'll continue to emphasize how important it is to interact.
And I'm not blaming specific counselors or calling out names or anything. I'm saying in general, from the administrative to our job descriptions to everything. I mean, we just need to get this right because we have not. It's that simple. We have not gotten it right, and it needs to be right now. And if you're asking for 4 more counselors, and I'm sure we're going to be looking at the middle school and high school, I think this is the time that we set a precedence and a demand on what we're hiring.
Agreed.
Thank you. Good job.
One other thing, Dr. Manchin.
Pardon me?
You want to remind
The
me
Family
about
Day, which we have that poster back there. Hey, Todd, Lola, lift that up. Let the board look at it, please.
It was taped to the wall, but it fell
Obviously,
down.
it didn't last on the wall. This will be at the mall. I will be there, probably doing something that I look stupid doing, marching with the band or something. But I do remember one year that Michael came through on stilts. I said, who's that big tall guy they're escorting out? It was Mike. But this is a neat thing that the board, or that the board obviously supports, and this is the 6th annual, and I've had the opportunity to be at every one of them. So I guess that's how long I've been around. Is that Family Day is a real neat thing. A lot of people show up at the mall. I guess there'll be some singing and dancing and whatever, all kinds of things we do there. Todd MC's it. Does a great job. So you're all welcome. What time we start? 11 o'clock, I think they told me.
11 to 3.
So if anybody can be at the mall right around 11 o'clock, and there's a nice crowd, there's generally a real nice crowd. Thank you, guys. That's all I have, Mr. President.
All right, no further issues or updates from the superintendent. This brings us down to the approval of the consent items. Is there a motion to approve the consent items as presented?
So moved.
Mr. Hoag has made a motion to approve the consent items. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Doherty has seconded the motion. Is there any discussion?
I have one. I was just looking at Wilkes excavator engine cover replacement. What at RCB? Was that just a maintenance issue?
That was, Jimmy, you may want to jump in. I think that was something they were doing at the pond, and it was something the school worked out, and they borrowed the equipment, and then whoever was doing it at the school damaged the equipment, and we had to pay for the damage.
Okay.
Do you know about that?
Yeah.
By the way,
Am I saying that right?
I have been up to Bird for a little while. We intend to make that pond viable. We intend to, a couple of you were asking, maybe institute the fishing program again. I think that was a neat thing. From what I heard, it really worked well.
It was well, good.
And they're going to have little paddle boats, and it's really going to be a neat thing. And I have been up there for a little while, so I don't know what the status is. But you all provided the funds to upgrade that. It's really going to look nice.
What about the parking at the top?
What, have we? There's this parking lot out here, and that up there.
Those are going to be worked on together.
That's what I thought.
But not yet. It hasn't been. They haven't started.
It's just we haven't gotten started yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
That way it's cheaper to do.
Yes, absolutely. It is.
But that is on our to-do list. So, okay, thank you.
Further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. This brings us down to new business. Mrs. Jean Hardesty, appointment to the Clarksburg Harrison Library Board of Trustees. Is there a motion to approve the appointment of Mrs. Jean Hardesty to the Board of Trustees to the Clarksburg Harrison Public Library as recommended by the superintendent?
So moved.
Mr. Hoag has made the motion to approve.
Second.
Mr. Hamrick has seconded the motion. Is there any discussion? No discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Out-of-state professional leave requests. Is there a motion to approve the out-of-state? Mr. Doherty has made the motion to approve the out-of-state professional leave requests. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Hamrick has seconded the motion. Is there any discussion? No discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Motion to approve each school's group that will be collecting funds in the name of the school as presented by the superintendent. Is there a motion to approve the school organizations that collect money in the name of the schools?
So moved.
Mr. Hoag has made the motion to accept, and Mr. Doherty has made the second. Is there a discussion?
Actually, I just want to see. I can't pull mine up for some reason.
Oh.
These are the same as before?
Yeah.
I would assume
I think
These
they're
are all the-
I think they're all the same as
Okay.
last year.
I
Yeah,
just
they're all the
wanted to make sure.
boosters and the PTOs and PTAs, groups that collect money in the name
Okay.
of the school.
And what the importance, and I will say this, over the years, in my superintendency, we've had people raise money who were not approved. And I say it's school sponsored, so we must be very, very careful about raising money in the name of the school. If it's not on that list, they don't raise money.
Exactly. Any further discussion? No further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. That brings us down to procurement of an architect for Lost Creek Elementary School. Is there a motion?
Yeah. Mr. President, I move I guess it'd be under the
Legal motion.
Under the legal, make a motion pursuant to Chapter 6-9A-4, subsection 12 of the West Virginia Code, the board go into executive session to discuss any legal matter which, by express provision of federal law or state statute or rule of court, is rendered confidential, not considered public record within the meaning of the Freedom of Information Act set forth by 29B-1-1, Section 1, Chapter 29B of this code.
Motion has been made to go into executive session in a legal motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Doherty has made a second. Is there any discussion? No discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Do we want to do personnel now at the same time, or do we want to go back and do that?
From executive session.
Make that motion.
Mr. Doherty's made a motion to return from executive session. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Hamrick has seconded the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are now back in regular session. Okay. As to the procurement of an architect for Lost Creek Elementary School project, we have tallied the scores, and McKinley was the architect of choice by the board. So at this point in time, I will make a motion to accept McKinley and Associates as the architect for the Lost Creek Elementary project.
So you're making a motion?
I'll make a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Well,
Mr. Hoag has seconded the motion. Is there any discussion?
well, the way you just presented it, I mean, you, collective, there were different choices, they were the majority.
Correct. McKinley
So-
was the choice, the majority choice.
Majority choice, not the choice. It was a majority choice.
That's correct.
Okay, I just wanted to make that clear on the record, and let's vote from there.
McKinley was the majority choice. A motion has been made, a second has been made. Is there any further discussion? To be clear, we are voting on McKinley and Associates as the architect for the Lost Creek Elementary project. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
The ayes have it, 4-1. That brings us down to Nutter Fort vacant lot. The property is directly across the street from several homes in Nutter Fort, and it needs, several trees need removed from the property for safety reasons. The proximity of the property is not suitable for utilization by the Harrison County Board of Education. Is there a motion to approve the sale of the said vacant lot at a public auction as recommended by the superintendent?
So moved.
Mr. Hoag has made a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second that.
Ms. Messenger has seconded the motion. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, explain it.
Okay,
Jimmy, why don't you get up here and explain it?
Okay.
Yeah, I'm trying
And
to find it.
I went
too.
ahead, and we have a piece of property that is adjacent to the practice facility.
What used to
that
be the
they-
football.
Yeah, it used to be the football practice field for Roosevelt Wilson. And it has a bunch of dead trees. If you look at the orange line, basically it's that little triangular area. It has a bunch of dead trees. The property owners across the street have petitioned us to clear that off. So we checked to see if it had any utilities on it, mineral rights, any use we could potentially build, on with parking or anything. And it's very hilly, has a lot of rocks in it. We're thinking it's going to save us money for having to the upkeep of cutting down trees and that type of thing. So that was the only reason why we decided that we would like to ask the board to consider selling it. Just one less piece of property that we're not going to use, and we don't need to maintain it.
With no value.
Well, no, it has
Now,
no value.
wait a second. I do believe that we do own the minerals and we have them actually
Well, that's-
based
the
under
mineral
that
rights isn't
property.
what
We
I got.
do have the mineral rights,
Yeah.
so I agree with selling it, but surface only has to be indicated in
That
that.
is.
And that, I
It's
think
in
that's
the
what it
minutes.
says in the agreement.
It is.
Oh,
We
I didn't
retain the
look at
rights.
that.
I misspoke there. I meant utility.
Yeah, because we do have the mineral rights under there.
pipe
I meant
runs up
utility,
through
right,
there,
that
you
type
know.
of thing. So that was the rationale for that. It's one less thing we have to send the maintenance guys over or get a contractor to come out and clear a bunch of dead trees.
It's really only beneficial to the guy that bought the football.
And this is
Or-
consideration to auction.
Yeah,
minimum
it says,
bid.
it says in the contract, the sale of the premises shall also be subject to all other reservations, exceptions, limitations, conditions, right-of-ways, easements, or
Yeah,
other
no,
servitudes, if any,
it's
made,
right in.
retained, or otherwise created by deeds or other instruments consulting the chain of title to the premises of record in said clerk's office.
I just got it pulled up. Todd has to teach me how to use this, use the surface.
And again, I had some property owners that contacted me. I went out and I took some pictures of dead trees, and so we're just concerned that it was going to cause some damage to neighboring properties. People's cars are parked right beside it.
Many years ago, when I used to help with football up there, windstorm come through, a bunch of the trees fell down, found across the road. We had to get them cut off and cleared out so people could get. That's how they. Only one way up to it.
That's how I used to walk up there.
Yeah.
When I was at RW
Yeah.
for that year, I'd walk up that hill.
God, is that a nightmare. I remember then when the trees would fall, they'd have the football.
All right, if there's no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Affiliation agreements between Harrison County Schools with Grand Canyon University, Salem University, Alderson Broaddus University, West Virginia University, and Pierpont Community and Technical College. Is there a motion to accept these affiliation agreements?
So moved. So moved.
Mr. Hoag has made the motion to accept the affiliation agreements. Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Messenger has seconded the motion. Is there any discussion? No discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Policy updates. There is no old business, by the way. I'll skip that one. Policy updates. A revision to policy 6303, Title I, parent involvement.
Mr. President, before the board are four, and of course, you can take them individually.
I would rather take them individually, as two of them are asked to waive the 30-day comment period, and two of them are asked to go out on the 30-day comment period.
And if I understand this correctly, Lola, the one before them right now, 6303, has one line that's strict, and it requires board action. Is that correct?
We just have to review it annually and update it, and so the parents got just
Stand up, please. I'm sorry.
We have to review it annually as a part of our compliances, and so the parents wanted to remove that time frame of when we actually do the survey, because in the past couple of years we run into issues with the time frame of that, and so it just takes off those limitations that we can do it at a time that's fit, and so it just does require board approval for that.
And it is being asked that the board waive the 30-day public comment period so that you can get that underway. Okay. All right, so at this point, at the time. Okay. So is there a motion to approve policy 6303, Harrison County Title I parental family engagement policy, and waive the recommended 30-day public comment period and approve on first reading?
So moved.
Mr. Hoag has made the motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Everybody seconded. Is there any discussion? No discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Revisions to policy 1101, school attendance areas.
Mr. President, we have been meeting. Mr. Hoag has been a representative of the Board of Education. We've had principals, we've had principal parties that are directly affected, and this language, I think and I hope, will further clarify transfers and out-of-area transfers and the issue that seems to be the issue du jour. There's a lot of that now, and I think that the board has said that we're going to take a stand, and it appears that we're at that point with this policy. So you certainly are welcome to look at it. We're going down on a 30-day comment period, and clearly this is the 30-day. This will require a 30-day comment period. You can peruse the red language in there. That's new language. Doug, do you want to speak to it? You were very active in the discussion, so.
Well, it's just that, like I said, we've gone through a period of years where, we've had kids going here, there, everywhere, out of area and what have you. And some filled out paperwork, some didn't fill out paperwork. And it got to a point that seems like every child, for whatever reason, we got great schools all over Harrison County, but we get parents who have an idea that the best, they want their kids to go to the Bridgeport school system. And they can, with the people that live there, there's only so much room. But people kept pushing them one in. Well, it just now has got to a point where we felt like that we needed to put a halt to it and try and bring back some balance all over the county within our school. If you choose to live, wherever you choose to live, then you should choose to let your kids go to the schools that are in that district or that area. And so this year, there's a little bit of a flexibility because you didn't want to just drop it on them right now. There has been some transfers allowed this year, but when school starts, we've asked that a map and what schools your children will go to, where you live, where they'll go to, and they'll go to elementary, where they'll go to middle school, and where they'll go to high school. And if you really feel that valuable that you want your child to go to another school, then that gives you a year to purchase a home in the school area that you want your child to go to. So that gives them all 2019 to look if that's where they prefer that their child go to school. And so anyway, it's just somewhere it has to stop. It has to, because it changed several years ago. It didn't start on Dr. Manchin's watch, and hopefully though we can end it, the confusion here on his watch. And Mrs. Haig, Dr. Haig is to be commended. She took the charge of the group, had all the principals in, myself and some others that sat in on the meetings and added our input into it. And I think that this is a step in the right direction to end this. Now, there are certain times that there are circumstances beyond the control, and if that case comes down, then we feel that that should go and lie in the hands of the superintendent. If some major catastrophe thing comes up for a child or whatever, then Dr. Manchin would have the final call on that. Hopefully that won't come about, and it's going to take a little bit getting used to, because a lot of parents are going to say, well, I was planning on sending my kid over here. Well, this year, starting, they'll know, where their kids go to elementary, where they'll go to middle school, where they'll go to high school. And hopefully, like I said, it will be a little bit painful for a while, but I think as time goes along, it'll heal itself, and we'll hopefully get the more balance back in all in the schools. And also, there used to be a form that you had to fill out. If I wanted a kid to want to transfer to another school, I signed off, went to the principal where they was going to go. They would sign off. It was a done deal. And it was only, so then they assumed, well, it was in place forever. Well, now we've gone back that every year, if you have a student that's out of attendance area, they will have to fill out a new paper at the end of the year, even though they're allowed to continue to go there because they've already been going. They'll still have to fill out the paperwork to show that they have the right to be in that attendance area. And I guess it goes back to the old adage, if a school fills up, the old adage was the last kid in is the first kid out if your school becomes too full and you have a kid that belongs there. So, like I say, this year is just a year of a transition year. And starting in 2021, then things should be set, and we should be able to proceed forward with it. So.
Right. And I appreciate that, your participation. You were very active in that role, and I part of the discussion I've been apprised. I think that we are requesting a 5-day, which is under the purview of the Board of Education if you choose. But we would like to, and I think what is it? And maybe somebody can answer this for me. We were in the process of putting in the handbook.
Student handbook, yeah. The map will go in the student handbook as well as this policy.
This policy, which is being drafted.
this, we're waiting on this.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm confused, but I'm looking at the map. I mean, right now, just exactly what you said, people wanting to transfer in and out, but then you've got three, or the yellow. You got this huge yellow area down here where still kids can go to Bridgeport, they can go to RCB, or to Metaphor Elementary, when they're right beside the South Harrison area. If we got Bridgeport's overwhelmed of students, RCB, and then you got two other smaller yellow areas that they can go to RCB and Bridgeport.
Or Liberty.
Or Liberty. So how did you avoid any confusion when you got three things on the map where they can still be confused?
I thought that's what we were getting rid of.
Yeah, I thought that's what we're getting rid of. So why in the world would you not, if we're going to be hard on it, pick an area, stick to it? But now you're saying, oh, well.
Where it says RCB Bridgeport, there's a line going down through there. That's the interstate. The children that live on, from the interstate section on towards Quaddale and what have you, were given the right, several years ago, they became Bridgeport's attendance area. In the old days, that was Roosevelt Wilson High School, went clear to Bullskin, okay, which is on the Barber County line. The Angles were the last family.
Yes, and that also included
Johnstown and all that.
They came in this direction. That would be Falls Run, Hastings Run, Stevens Run.
So, but all
out
of that,
through the left of the interstate as you're going south.
You know, and so
On the right-hand
you're still going to
side.
have that confusion though. Whatever was done in the past, I thought that's what we're trying to fix. Because this is still confusing because you still got those areas that now it's in yellow. So why not just so if you're having that mark down there, if you're going to have RCB, then you have that, then make that RCB all that green. If you're going to have that Bridgeport, definitely Bridgeport, then have all that
in
white.
the clear color.
Yeah, and then clear color. So when because this, for me as a board member looking at this, I'm like, well, how did you stop any confusion? Because I still don't know if I'm in this area, which school I'm going to. And then I got the other yellow areas.
Yeah. See, what as Jimmy's saying, you know, that area that's from the interstate on that goes to Bridgeport, that collar can be made to match the collar of the Bridgeport. In other words, it shows that's Bridgeport area. That's in yellow will go, you know.
So can you fix the map?
Yes, it would become the blue part of Robert C. Byrd. So that could be fixed. You know.
Well, where does
Well, so what's the other two yellows for then?
That's RCB and Liberty.
What other two yellows?
The two little other yellow spots are in there.
The one in the middle of
RCB
RCB.
Bridgeport, and then Liberty RCB.
Let's see where that is.
Says Liberty
I'm just,
RCB.
because we're talking about eliminating confusion, and I as a board member am confused by looking at this map. So if this is going out in all the handouts, well, you're going to have parents who are going to be just like me going, well, what does that mean?
It's it's RCB or Liberty, and it's right at their line as well.
That's Rosebud Plaza.
That's Adamston.
Okay, so which
yeah, I can't answer the reason why it's like that. Oakbound Park.
Right, but why does it?
What school do they go to?
Then it should be blue. They came to Rosebud.
They go to
came to
Adamston,
Robert.
but then they go to
Robert C. You know.
But that's not. So how did any of this fix any of our confusion when we're still confused? Like, you know what I mean? So the team got together and said, "Hey, let's make this more colorful confusion."
No, that
They
map
just be
already
confused.
existed.
That map is all. That
So
map is.
then, whether it exists or not, if we're changing up, we got a year to fix it. Let's fix it. Let's make it. Too bad after this year. That's where you go. If we're gonna tick off people, let's do it one time. Right? So we go to look at those yellows and we say, okay, from now on, this is this.
Those
this
are
is
part
that.
of Robert C. Byrd.
Yeah, you need to change.
Just change the color.
Just change the
To the
color.
color
so
of the,
that there's no more confusion.
right.
And you know these are the schools.
But this is an old map that was given to us, right?
But I just want to update. If we're going to put it in the handouts, let's update it and make
So those
it.
are the only two sections that are yellow.
Well, no, we got the big yellow down here, we got the two over here.
Yeah.
Right, 2 sections.
No, in the two sections,
No,
there's
you
three.
have 2 in
There's
the
one,
middle.
there's one,
Next to
We all
there's
agree
one
on
next to
that.
Bridgeport RCB.
This is,
Okay.
Spot right there.
and I agree with you.
Okay.
This is a 10-year-old
That is
map.
and
We
more.
debated.
If it's
That
fenced
is
in,
and more.
Now,
We don't
to
have-
clarify, and I think, the
more
point- I'm gonna take it back small.
And more goes
more
to
is
Bridgeport.
Just make this one Bridgeport.
So we'll make it that
Regular
conversation.
varsity?
No, elementary
That's,
goes to Nutter
Whatever.
Fort.
Yeah, I
But
think it had to do
Bridgeport-
with the overflow from Nutter Fort Elementary back in the day.
Then
Because those
Bridgeport,
kids
I
from
don't-
Oak Mountain went to.
We just have one big school.
Now you're gonna have an overflow at Bridgeport.
Oh, I did
Well-
supply the map.
no, that
It's
was
an existing
that's
map.
the-
Yeah,
This is
yeah,
the
it
way-
just needs
supplies
updated
the
to
confusion.
whatever your committee
yeah.
Thanks, Jim.
decided, and there shouldn't be any yellow areas, is
Should not be
what
yellow.
we've all
I
discussed.
think the
It's
reason
running
they
fast
did
from
it
this
that
bit,
way is
yeah.
because
Yeah, because when I see yellow, I think Lincoln.
the elementary kids are going to Nutter Fort.
No, that's tan.
But when they get to middle and high school, they
tan.
are over in Bridgeport.
Well, but it's gonna be confusing.
You got it.
Well, I know, but
That's light yellow, actually.
that's what,
That's what they did 10
Unless
years
they
ago.
change.
We're a new board and new people.
unless this board changes.
I don't
that.
think we've changed any districts.
No,
No.
no, we never changed any districts.
No, so
you're changing
I,
the
I
map.
Are
think,
you
I
saying the
think
color could be?
the color could be more
If you
appealing.
change all of that. If
No.
you're saying from
Nope.
the road here, make that Bridgeport. Because that's what you're saying. That's what you're
So,
just
so
saying. here.
Bridgeport, where this
You're
says
saying from the right to the
yellow,
interstate.
that white comes clear down here where this yellow
So
is.
you're
Yes.
saying everybody in that yellow can randomly choose to go to RCB or Bridgeport?
No, no, no.
Then that
no.
needs to be
No, the
corrected
interstate-
on
the
what
interstate
side
divided.
goes to Bridgeport and what side has to go to
Right,
RCB.
right.
It's not that we don't like the colors, it's just yellow means
Well, I'll tell you why.
student choice. And there
Well, you
shouldn't
know
be any
why
yellow.
they did, well, it wasn't so much student choice as the fact that they had elementary schools in other feeders that those children were assigned to. Do you see what I'm saying? Typically, when you go into an elementary school, that's a feeder to a certain high school or middle school. In that case, those
Because right here.
students are in different
Is this
feeder
RCB
schools,
section? Or is this-
elementary
Because
ones.
it still says right there,
those
RCB
students
Bridgeport.
They
Those
don't
are
bring,
students out there,
they
so-
don't
So
bring
let's take-
elementary students out of Fayetteville
Take it back tomorrow.
into Johnson or Simpson Elementary. They go to Norwood.
Let me ask
So-
you something, the new
So it- the
CFP
change
committee,
was-
are they not re-looking at this? So before we print and put things in a manual and make any comments, shouldn't we wait for that
Yeah,
10-year?
The president and
I just asked Dr. Manchin if he would be opposed to tabling this to a later date till we can clean this, until they can clean this
I
map.
agree, I think it's an excellent point.
So
And
if there's-
we
if-
think that-
Can we
We've
take-
looked at this, when you start going down the path of changing attendance area, but the way it looks, we don't want to do that, because then you got,
Right, but if you're
maybe the way
putting
this
the map in
map
there-
looks could be confusing.
So make it, so if there is a motion to table
I
this,
make a motion, we table this.
Mr. Doherty has made a motion to table this item.
Second.
Mr. Hamrick has seconded the motion. Is there any discussion?
Nope.
All
Wait,
those
who
in
made the
favor,
motion?
Mr. Doherty,
Okay.
Mr. Hamrick seconded the motion.
Hamlin and Daugherty.
I think the motion should be, for the media, is to clarify.
Table
To clarify the attendance areas, the color-coded attendance areas. I don't want the media to get the impression that.
That we're
the board is-
redistricting.
Yeah, redistricting.
We're not redistricting. We're just clarifying the color coding of the attendance
Yeah,
areas.
the color coding,
All right. So if there's no other discussion, all those in favor signify by
Well,
saying,
Discussion.
Yes.
part. Now, by tabling this, it will not be able to make it to the handbook in time.
well.
It'll have to be an
It's better than
addendum.
being wrong.
it's better than being
Well, I'm
wrong.
saying,
Yeah.
it'll have to be an addendum to the, it'll have to be
And
homeless.
if necessary, we'll make an addendum to it. But I think the point's well taken by this board. It's better than being, better than wrong.
Right.
Because that'll create even more heartache for us.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
All right. No further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item is tabled. All right. Revisions to Harrison County Policy 4103, Manual for Expected Student Behavior. Is there a motion to make revisions to the Harrison County Policy 4103 and waive the 30-day comment period?
We put parent behavior on here as well. Students are good.
This is per a request from Mr. Jim Kirby, who has, this now reflects a state change policy. So Jim Kirby brought this to us.
State change policy under House
This
Bill
is verbatim
206.
language.
Okay, make a motion, we approve.
And waive the 30-day comment period?
Yeah. And wait.
Mr. Hamrick has made a motion that we approve and waive the 30-day comment period. Is there a second? Ms. Messenger has seconded the motion. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, just gonna say, since it's verbatim language of state code, we've noticed where we don't get in trouble if we mirror state code. Sometimes we do when we don't.
Right. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Revisions to policy 3106, personal leave and absences.
Mr. President, I would strongly suggest the board look at this very closely. It is our policy. It is obviously on the agenda tonight, but I raised some concerns today, and we left it on here as it relates to sick leave and abuse of sick leave. We are coming to crisis stage that many people who do not or cannot use their sick leave as they get ready to retire now are trying to circumvent the whole law and what we feel is what's best for the school system by taking days off in a random fashion sometimes, and sometimes in a coordinated fashion, like every Thursday and Friday. So they utilize all of them, and it's at the great detriment to the school system. So I'm going to ask the board to review this, allowed to go out on the 30-day comment period with the understanding is that there are going to be some people who are going to really raise some issues with it. I fully understand that and anticipate that.
How do you, well, number one, falsely reporting that sick leave is being used for that purpose when the employee is not actually sick? How do you verify they're not actually sick?
And this we were assisted in drafting this by an attorney.
If they're on Facebook at Kennywood, that would probably.
Yeah, something to that effect.
Right, and I understand that, but I'm saying
If it's on Facebook, it's true.
Well, it's got to be true. So after 3 days, it requires them to bring a sick leave, a doctor's leave.
That's generally in most.
Yeah, that has
government
been.
organizations.
But if you really want to, falsely reporting a sick leave is being used for that purpose, and it goes on, you can look at that. The language, as I recall,
It says right here, failure to provide medical documentation supporting more than 3 consecutive days of absence within 5 business days of the third absence is something that has to be provided.
And then on page 5, employees who take excessive use of paid leave and or who demonstrate a suspicious pattern of using paid leave shall be subject to investigation. An employee who is found to have improperly exercised paid or unpaid leave shall be subject to disciplinary action up to including termination of his or her employment. This goes to the issue of somebody who intends to, as they get close to either leaving the county school system or retiring, chooses to start taking every Thursday and Friday off, or taking every Friday off, or taking every Monday and Wednesday and Friday off.
And this was caused by the legislature.
It is.
They took away
the right
to
there was
use.
no incentive.
I'm in the old retirement system.
I am
saved
too.
mine. But even, I'm an employee of the county commission. We can't take a sick day on a Friday before a Monday holiday without a excuse.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just saying on an even playing field here. I mean, you're talking about accumulated sick days that teachers have. They go from year to year, right?
That's correct.
And then, okay. So I know what you're saying, but according to those aren't their days, okay? Number one, and for the days they didn't use them, they actually did go to work, and I kind of feel like we're penalizing them. And I understand what you're saying, and it puts us in a bad position. But I mean, they are entitled to those days. I don't feel we should be policing professional employees asking for doctor's excuses like a first grade. I understand after so many days we do. I'm just not comfortable with this. And believe me, I understand what you're saying because I've been a sub for those teachers using those Thursdays and Fridays, or, had almost 100 of them. And basically didn't even come a whole semester. I mean, I subbed for those people, and I know it is difficult. But there is a flip side to that, those are their days.
But the personal days are their days, vacation days are their days. Sick days still have to have a crux of illness behind them. I mean, by the code. It's not that you get sick days and you can use them for anything. You still have to show that you're sick. And I know where you're coming from, it's their days. The legislature ruined it years ago when they took away the ability. I've got 1,300 sick hours. I'm not going to start using those because I'm going to, 6 years from now I can retire, and that's going to be my health. It pays for health insurance. But the new employees don't have that, so I don't fault the employees.
They can only use it for insurance. Their sick days.
In the newest,
they can't use it for anything.
Can't use them for anything.
Nothing.
Now our system is great.
Thank goodness.
Thank goodness for it.
Yeah, that's right.
You're right, and I understand that. And
you can add years of service or health.
And Angela made the point. She made the same point today, which are excellent points. These are your days. We've already been informed by a couple of employees who said that I'm going to take every Tuesday and Thursday off. They tell them straight up.
Wouldn't it be nicer to know that?
Once you've earned those days, the
Well,
state
that's the question.
does
I mean,
not
I'd rather know that and be
delineate
prepared.
between whether it's a sick or a personal day. You've already earned those days.
No, they do delineate it.
No, and I saw it in the law book. There's been an opinion in the law book that once those employees have earned those days, the county cannot dictate that they have to have a doctor's note or put stipulations to how they use those days because they've already been earned. They've already worked the days, they've already been earned. I'll bring the law book in and show you.
At this point in time, all we're asking is, all that's being asked of us is that we place this on 30-day comment. So a motion has been made by Mr. Hamrick to place on 30-day comment. Oh, I'm sorry, no, you haven't made a motion on this, have you? There has not been a motion made.
I'll make a motion on it.
Ms. Messenger has made a motion to place this policy on 30-day comment. My computer just died. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Hogue has seconded the motion. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Policy is on 30-day
And
comment.
if I may, Mr. President and members of the board, what we'll do is collect all the information and see what we get. And if it starts going in an area that becomes problematic or something like that, then the board still has the right to, or don't even put it back on the agenda. But at least let's open it up for discussion. So I appreciate at least allowing that discussion.
All right.
I got almost 5 years of extra service from my sick
Absolutely.
days. I went from 36 to.
And guess what, Doug? You deserve those because you actually worked.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. That's an incentive.
This is a very gray area, and I think that it is something, I'm glad it's on public comment, but we got to be.
But
and
the
I
difference,
understand
the
what you're
difference
saying.
is when he took his, they were after the fact and were applied after he left, and then they cashed those in. If you do it during the fact, then we not only are paying that, but we're paying for the sub as well. That's the issue. They didn't have to pay in.
I
He got his
understand.
5 years, but they didn't have to pay another employee 5 years to do it.
I understand that, and I also understand what Dr. Manchin is saying. Like I said, I was the sub that was called in all the time for these 2 days or 5 days or whatever, and it was difficult. I'd see papers that weren't graded for months because the teacher was using her. And it's not
Legislature
fair
could
to the
fix it.
students. It's not fair to
Just
the
incentive.
Well,
students.
let the legislature take it up in their next session.
Yeah.
Moving on. The next item is personnel. Is there a motion on personnel?
Motion to accept personnel.
I think Mr. Hogue wanted to make a
Yeah,
motion to go into executive
I move
session.
pursuant to 6-9A-42 of the West Virginia Code that the board go into executive session to discuss personnel and personnel matters which, if discussed in public, might adversely affect the reputation of any person.
Mr. Hogue has made a motion to go into executive session for personnel matters. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Doherty has seconded the motion. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? We will be in executive session.
Can you fan the covers? Okay. I'll second that.
All right, the motion has been made to return to executive session by Mr. Doherty. A second has been by Mr. Hogue. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, is there a motion to accept the personnel agenda with the agenda adjustments noting recusals by myself for the basketball position.
And me
At Bridgeport High School.
on, my daughter's up for one of the substitute positions.
Science, basketball,
Yeah,
and,
yeah,
and that's your daughter.
yeah.
So
She don't tell anybody though. You don't want anybody to know.
She don't claim you.
No,
she tries to keep us.
it real.
Okay.
Okay.
Have to recruit.
All right.
Is there a motion to accept?
I'll make the motion.
Ms. Messenger has made the motion to accept. Mr. Doherty has seconded. Is there any discussion? No discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Doherty has, or Mr. Hamrick has made the motion to adjourn. Mr. Doherty has seconded. Any discussion? No discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned.
Children of peace, go in peace.
Thank you, thank you.